Good, Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Welcome to the Assistance League of Los Angeles Playhouse. How's everybody doing? All right. I got to tell you the difference between backstage and front of house with regard to the air conditioning. You guys definitely have the upper hand.
I'm Ashley Alvarado. I am the manager of public engagement for KPCC, an NPR affiliate here in LA.
And I'm John Cohn, managing producer of KPCC In Person, KPCC's events and engagement platform. So by a quick round of applause, how many of you are KPCC listeners? How many of you aren't listeners? Sure.
Thank you for coming. So let's keep the clapping going. How many of you are attending a KPCC in-person event for the first time?
Awesome. All right, so now because we've got you slightly warmed up, because we are recording for potential broadcast, live video, all those other things, we kind of got to get audience levels. So I'm going to run you through a couple little exercises, make sure we got the levels right. Tony, are you ready for this? Excellent, thank you. Tony's our technical director, by the way. Let's give it up for Tony Federico. All right, so let's say our host comes out here and he has a joke and it's kind of funny, but you don't want to be rude. How are you going to respond? All right, not that that's going to happen. He's amazing. So let's say he comes out and he has a joke a little bit better, a little bit funnier, but you've heard it before, but it was actually pretty funny. All right, that was pretty good. Last joke, best joke ever. The bar has been set, my friend. The bar has been set. All right, so let's say somebody comes out, they're rolling along, and they come up with the most awful pun you have ever heard. What are you going to give me? Perfect. Well, I think, I hope we got it. We got it, Tony? All right. So we're here not only just to run you through a bunch of vocal exercises, but because Southern California, as you probably know, is full of untold stories, and even more that go unheard.
And we at KPCC In Person wanted to do something about that. So that's how we landed with Unheard LA, the stories of where you live. We began by reaching out to community members and asking them to share a story about themselves or their communities in whatever format felt best or most natural to them.
And our focus was on the substance of the story and the way it related to life in Southern California. It could be music, visuals, poetry, essay, and we received over 250 submissions.
And that's when things got really tough. We had to decide who we would feature in this brand new series of events, but we figured it out and we reached out to these folks. We've worked with them. Some of them have never been on stage before, some have, but each has been willing to work with us and is here to help celebrate and illuminate the diversity and complexity that is Southern California.
Real people amplified. Each show is unique because of who's involved and where we are, and tonight is no exception. And as these experiences are recounted by those that live them, they inevitably include a range of observations and perspectives. As a non-advocacy, nonpartisan media organization, just a reminder that what you hear and see today is reflective of our courageous community storytellers and not an endorsement by KPCC.
It's true. Thank you to the California Wellness Foundation for supporting the project and for making Unheard LA possible. Tonight is the third of a three-part series, but we are very much hoping and hopeful that we will get to continue what we've started.
KPCC is on air. Oh, well, thank you very much. No, we'll take that. We'll take that. And that really is directed to the California Wellness Foundation. I think it's easy to say everything is made possible by. This was an idea. It wasn't until they came along that it became a reality. So in all seriousness, not to put too fine a point on it, Cal Wellness.
Thank you.
KPCC is on air, online, and in person. So for today's show, we are live video streaming, Facebook living, and audio recording, which means you're welcome to use your devices. We just ask that you silence them, maybe lower your screen brightness. Photos are okay, but please no flash, no audio recording, no video recording. Believe me, we have that covered.
We do encourage you to hang out with us on social media too. We are at KPCC In Person, and the hashtag is UnheardLA.
So, enough of John and Ashley. No show would be complete without a host, so please join me in welcoming actor, writer, Watts Village Theater Company artistic director, Nate Evangelino, and our Unheard LA host, Bruce Lemon.
Well, what's up, Hollywood? Welcome to our third Unheard LA show, and welcome to the gorgeous Assistants League of Los Angeles Playhouse. Let's see who we have in the house tonight. I'm representing the East Side, South Central, Watts. Give me another one. Watts, South Central, LA in here. All right. Let's see who we got out in this house. And I need you to yell out where you're from. That could be where you're from, where you were born, what's in your heart, where you live, where you work, all of that, whatever it is to you on the count of three. 1, 2, 3, go. I still heard somebody say Watts out there. Okay, one more time. 1, 2, 3, go. Nice. We got all of LA in here tonight. As John pointed out, I am Bruce Lemon. I will be the unrepresented actor driving you around in your chosen rideshare vehicle today. In the aisles, I have some tissues, and I have some Mother's Day candy in my trunk, just in case you forgot what tomorrow is. Wink, wink, hint, hint, you've been warned. All right? Now, you know, when I was a kid and somebody asked you, where are you from, one of the safest answers you can give is, my mama. I mean, hey, it's pretty accurate, right? You know, I mean, aside from carrying you around for months on end while you ate all of her food, kicked her in the stomach, and sat directly on her bladder, Mom set a course. Mine did. She's the one that got me going to auditions and put me in classes like ballet. Thanks, Tracy, wherever you are. You're in here somewhere. Hey, Mom. You know, you fast forward a couple years later, well, a lot of years later, to when I went to college, and you know what she did when I went to school? She went back. You see, she didn't get to finish back in the 80s because, I don't know, I needed to eat or have my diaper changed or survive or something like that. But she went back in and she finished just a year before I did. And give her a clap, please. Give her a clap. Oh, yeah. And a couple weeks ago, she actually just got her master's. Yeah. I could not be more proud. But now I wonder. Well, we both wonder. We talked about this the other day. Who's first generation now? Is it when you start or when you finish? I don't know. Now, the online community called I'm First, they define a first-generation college student as neither parent having received a 4-year college degree. And last year, the Washington Post reported that nearly 1/3 of all students entering 2- or 4-year universities are most likely going to be people of color, and we are apparently less likely to graduate. But you can't stop a dreamer, and you can't knock the hustle. Please welcome to the stage our first storyteller, Richard Reyes.
When I was in 6th grade, my parents shared with me that they had not graduated from college, and neither had their parents. If I did, I would be one of the first in my entire family to earn a degree, and that was my goal. Entering 10th grade, I decided to step out of my comfort zone by trying out for the boys' soccer team. I remember the coach arrived, and he had the first drill set up for us. There were cones lined up from one side of the field all the way to the other side. And the purpose of that drill was to show that we could dribble the ball through the cones. The ball was on the floor, and it was my turn, and I started dribbling right, left. And the coach was on the other side of the field, and he said, andale, right, left, andale, which means hurry up, go faster. Yeah, see, I knew that, but he was so far away, it sounded like he was saying, handale. So I'm there saying, yeah, Richard, you got that, handle the ball, And then when I look up, the coach is saying, andale. And he's looking right at me because I was not going fast enough. Needless to say, I was horrible at everything soccer, but I made the team. I was the JV boys soccer bench warmer that season. Yes. In 11th grade, I joined the leadership class, and my senior year, I was the student body president, the homecoming prince, and the prom king. But with all those social titles that came my way, I will never forget the most important part of my senior year, college application time. Being from Los Angeles, I said, I'm going to start with the UC app and apply to UCLA or UC Santa Barbara. And I remember I sat down at my computer and I typed in that application, and when I went to the requirement page, one of the first ones I read was, must have a 3.0 grade point average or higher. And I said, I don't have that. That means I can't apply to a UC school? I didn't know that. But I said, you know what, it's okay because I'll go to a Cal State. I typed in that Cal State application, I went to the requirement page, and I found one that said, must have C's or better in all 4 years of English. I don't have that either. That means I can't apply to a Cal State? I didn't know that. And when it finally clicked, and I realized my grades were so bad in high school, I couldn't even apply to a 4-year college in California, I felt like a total failure. I was able to graduate high school on time, and I enrolled at Glendale Community College. I got a job at an elementary school as a teacher assistant, and I really focused on my grades. I put in effort, I got help. My first 2 semesters, I earned a 4.0. But then my 3rd semester arrived, and I'll never forget this specific day. I woke up and I went to work. I got off work, I drove straight to school. I got there a little early, and as I was walking to class, all of a sudden, boom, pa! I felt like there was this pain that went straight through the left side of my body. I didn't know what it was, but it hurt, it was uncomfortable, it was kind of hard to breathe. I remember I checked around, I said, okay, there's no blood, you didn't get shot, that's good, but what just happened, I don't know. I went to my sociology class, I went home that night, I went to bed, I woke up the next morning and I drove to work. I was at the elementary school for no more than 15 minutes. It was getting nearly impossible to breathe and I started turning pale. They drove me to the hospital. When I got to the emergency room, the doctor said, we have to figure out what's wrong with you. We're gonna give you an x-ray. So they took me back to the x-ray room and they performed the x-ray. And 30 minutes later, when the doctor came into the room, he said, Richard, your lung collapsed. I said, I got class at 4 o'clock. Do what you gotta do, right? Within 5 minutes, there were 3 doctors in their blue scrub uniforms that came into my room, and they had these 2 needles. They poked me twice, they put me to sleep, and when I woke up an hour later, I had a tube coming out of my chest. And when I saw the tube, I said, dang, I'm not going to class tonight, huh? I was gonna be stuck in a hospital, and the doctor said, Richard, you're gonna be in this hospital for 3 days. On that 3rd day, the doctor came in, he took the tube out, and everything was okay. I was healthy again. 1 month passed. I was showering before work. I took 1 step outside my shower. Boom, pa! It happened again. I went to the emergency room, and when I got there, I said, doctor, my lung collapsed. He said, okay, let's give you the x-ray. He took me back to the x-ray room, and they performed the x-ray, and 30 minutes later, when he came back, he said, Richard, your lung collapsed. I said, I know, I just told you that, right? So within 5 minutes, there are 3 doctors in their blue scrub uniforms in my room, and they're gonna have those 2 what? And they're gonna poke me twice and put me to sleep. When I wake up, I had a, and he's gonna say, Richard, you're gonna be in the hospital for? Good, you know the story, all right. On that 3rd day, the doctor came in, he took that tube out. Boom, pa. Richard, this is gonna happen to you for the rest of your life unless you get a major procedure done. There are 7 blebs on your lung, which are thin pockets of tissue. We have to go inside, staple those 7 blebs, and glue your lung to your chest wall. I said, you ain't gluing anything inside of my body. This ain't our project. I pictured some Elmer's glue going up in there, right? It was not about to happen. But I had no choice. I went into surgery the next day. It took me 3 weeks to fully recover from that surgery. I missed all my midterms at Glendale College. But when I was healed, I went back. And when I went back to school, all 4 of my professors said the same thing. You've missed too much work. There's no way you're gonna pass, so we advise you to withdraw. And I was. But I decided against it, and I decided to make up the work and get the best grades I could. And it was tough, but I stayed committed. At the end of the semester, after my finals, I got my grades online, and when I looked at them, they said, A, 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 A. I did it. I proved them wrong, and I was so proud of myself. Yeah. I said, it's time to transfer. Growing up in Glassell Park, Occidental College was a few blocks away, and that was my dream school, but I never thought I could ever get into this place. So I said, maybe I can. At my computer, I typed in the application, I read through the requirements, and I met them all. I put my application together, and I sent it in. And Occidental College told me, Richard, you're gonna find out whether you get accepted or not on May 17th. That's my birthday. So I was so excited to hear that. And I had to wait many months for my birthday to roll around, but when it got here on that day, I went to work, and when I got off work, instead of driving straight to school, I was driving straight home. I got in my car, my heart was racing, and I told myself, you've been waiting for this day since you were in 6th grade. I got home, I parked the car, I ran up to the porch, and when I opened up the mailbox, the first letter that popped out was the one that said, "To Richard Reyes from Occidental College." I opened up the letter and I read it. It said, "Dear Richard, we regret to inform you did not get accepted to Occidental College." I fell to the floor on that porch and I just started crying. I thought for sure I was getting in, and I didn't. And over the next few weeks and few months, I became depressed. I didn't know what the next step of my life was going to be. I thought I had wasted all this time, and college just wasn't supposed to be for the Reyes family. But something in me said to try it again. And I had the courage to listen to that voice, and a semester later, I went back online to that same website and made sure I still met all the requirements. And when I realized I did, I sent in a different application. And many months went by, but on the second time when I was going to figure out whether I got in or not to Oxy, when I woke up that morning, I felt like my heart was in my stomach. I thought I was going to throw up all day long at work. But when I got off work, I was going to drive straight home. I got in my car. I drove home as fast as I could. I parked the car. I ran up to the porch. I opened up the mailbox, and I sorted through every single letter that was in the mailbox that day. And there was nothing from Occidental College. And I was like, what does that even mean? And then I saw there was this package on the floor. And when I walked over to the package and picked it up, when I flipped it over, the outside of the envelope said, "Welcome to Oxy, Richard Reyes." And I fell to the floor again and cried like a little baby. I was at Occidental College for 2 years, and I earned my bachelor's degree in critical theory and social justice. I then took a semester off of school, and I enrolled at Cal State LA, where I earned my master's degree in education. And now, as a Latino, first-generation college student, and someone who graduated from North Hollywood High School with a 2.3 grade point average, I had a lot of statistics against me, and I was not supposed to have earned a master's degree by the time I was 25, but I did. Today, I get to share my story and work with thousands of middle and high school students every single year with a nonprofit that I launched called the Plus Me Project, and we get to support students with discovering their stories and sharing them. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. I tripped on the way out here, but since it's not on Facebook, it didn't happen, right? Is that how social media works? Yeah, so I was thinking some of the best experience in our lives may have passed us by in favor of watching cat videos, but it's not too late to turn this right around and take in the sights. So please welcome our next storyteller, a real live human right before your very eyes. Please welcome Fariel Assan.
I'm 14 years old, and I'm a freshman in high school. And in the past year or so, I've made a lot of realizations. Sure, I don't know everything, but I've learned a lot from my experiences. And I've noticed that meaningful conversations between people sitting face to face have been taken over by emotionless acronyms. I mean, when you're texting someone LOL, are you really laughing out loud? People gauge their self-worth by counting the number of likes they get on their pictures. And I was inspired to write this poem as a way to voice my opinion on something that affects our everyday lives and can totally change who we are. My life is not confined to a snap story. My memories are not rated by the number of likes. I am my own person, just the way I like. My social life is not the people who follow me, but the people who stand with me. I am not defined by how many comments I get on a photo. I'm here, living outside a screen. At night, I can see the illuminating light of the moon. In the morning, I can see the glowing light of the sun, not my screen. My fingers are busily painting away the day, not texting. I can see my friends' vibrant expressions, not an emoji. I'm living outside of a screen. This is a life I call fun. Sunshine all around, water on my toes, and I didn't even bother to post. Thank you.
Oh, she's awesome. February 19th is known as the Day of Remembrance. This year marks 75 years since President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, which led to the incarceration of 120,000 people of Japanese descent during World War II, many of which live right here on the Pacific coast. It was later stated after an investigation ordered by President Jimmy Carter that the actions of the government were based on race prejudice, war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership. Here to share about his family's experience, please join me welcoming to the stage Koji Steven Sakai.
This is the story of my father, Walter Sakai. We were as close as a father and son could be, but the one part of him that I never knew was the part of him he spent as a child in camp. Camp is shorthand in Japanese American for the internment camp, or more accurately, the concentration camp, which are different than the death camps in Europe. One of the earliest memories I have of my dad was him yearning to remember what happened to him as a child. Time, sickness, and age had worn down his memories until he had only 3 left of the camp. The first was that his dad worked for the Japanese government, and that's why they were taken. The second was that we had been in Tule Lake, Northern California. And the third was that the food was really bad. When I asked my uncle, my dad's oldest sibling, about it, he told us we were in Topaz, Utah. When I asked my aunt, my dad's older sister, she said they were in Crystal City, Texas. One of the memories my aunt always shares with me is that she remembered a swimming pool in a concentration camp. It's hard to imagine, right? What's unusual about all these stories was that most Japanese Americans from Hawaii, like my family, weren't taken to camp. So why them? It wasn't until I started working at the Japanese American National Museum that I started to ask questions about what happened. Being around Japanese American history, culture, and being around people who had actually been in camp, I suddenly needed to know my family's story. But everyone who knew, including my father, had passed away or just didn't remember much. So I started doing my own research. I wrote to the Department of Justice. I wrote to the National Archives. I wrote to the FBI. And this is the story I found. I hope my dad, wherever he is, this will help put his soul to rest. My grandfather was a Nisei, or a second-generation Japanese American, or in other words, an American citizen. My father had been right. My grandfather worked for the Japanese government. He was a clerk in the consulate's office in Honolulu, which is the equivalent of working for the Taliban in New York City right before 9/11. Not a great place for him to have been. The FBI believed my grandfather was pro-Japanese and anti-American in sentiment and more old-time Japanese than anything else. He was accused of 3 things. First, in 1937, he and another consulate official apparently took a camera from a naval intelligence officer who was trying to take pictures of a Japanese ship. Then, during a hearing, he admitted that he thought the consulate officials were acting suspiciously and he didn't report it to the proper authorities. And third, and probably most damning, was that he was paid to burn paperwork in the consulate's office on August 1st of 1941. These charges were vacated, but the government considered him a threat. So they couldn't just let him go. So they sent him and the rest of my family to camps on the mainland. Specifically, they were sent to Topaz, Utah. It's important not only to know where they were, but why. So it's 1943, America's in a major war. We need soldiers, we need more people to help in the war effort. And there's 120,000 Japanese Americans sitting behind barbed wire doing nothing. But the problem was the government couldn't tell the difference between, quote, good Japanese Americans and, quote, bad Japanese Americans. So they created this loyalty questionnaire. The 2 most important questions were questions 27 and question 28. Question 27 basically said, will you fight in the war if you're a male? And female, will you help in the war effort? And question 28 was, will you swear allegiance to the United States of America? There were only 2 possible answers to these questions. Yes, yes, and no, no. Answering one of them no meant you're answering them both no. These 2 questions literally divided my community, and its effects can still be felt today. So why did people answer yes, yes? It's pretty simple, actually. They were loyal and willing to do whatever it took to prove it. and they had no allegiances to any other country anyway. No was a little bit more complicated, though. For some, they said, you take me out of this camp, you take me out of this prison, I'm willing to say yes. Until then, no. And they felt question 28 was a trick question because the underlying assumption in this question is that you had allegiance to another country in the first place. How did my grandfather answer these two questions? He said no to question 27 and no to question 28. My grandfather gave 3 reasons why he answered this way. First, he said, I'm an American citizen. He was insulted. Second, he thought if he was released, he thought if he said yes, he would be released onto the mainland where he had no friends or family and into communities that were going to be anti-Japanese. And third, he thought that they're all going to be deported anyway. So a yes answer wouldn't look very good when he ended up in Japan. Because of his answers, him and my family were sent to Tule Lake, where all the bad Japanese were sent. In 1944, around this time, the United States government passed a law that American-born citizens were able to renounce their citizenship voluntarily during wartime. This bill was designed to pave the way for the mass deportation of Japanese Americans after the war. It was under this law that my grandfather and other Japanese Americans like him renounced his citizenship. He said he did this for 2 reasons. First, like I said earlier, he thought he's going to be deported anyway, and he thought best to be first rather than last in line to Japan. And second, that there were these pro-Japanese forces within the camp that threatened him and his family if they didn't answer the way that they wanted him to. Once Tule Lake closed, they were sent to Crystal City, Texas. This camp was for enemy aliens and had to adhere to the Geneva Conventions, which meant better food and shelter than those regular concentration camps. And when I looked into it, there was a swimming pool in Crystal City. After the war, my grandfather and other Japanese Americans like him realized that renouncing their citizenship was a mistake. They worked with Wayne Collins, a gentleman from San Francisco, who basically said, and I quote, "You can no more resign your citizenship in time of war than you can resign from the human race." He argued that their renunciations had been a result of the unlawful detention and the terrible conditions in Tule Lake, and that anyone in their shoes would have made the same decisions as they did. My grandfather gave his reasons for why he should be allowed to stay. He said, "I'm an American by birth, my rights were violated, but I still want to stay in this country." After much hand-wringing, my grandfather and his family were allowed to stay. They were released and given $25 and one-way tickets back to Hawaii. And 10 years later, they got their citizenship back. I don't look at my grandfather's story through rose-colored glasses. There's a lot of disturbing things here. In fact, when I first read it, I thought he was a spy. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away before I was born. I have so many questions for him. The first and most important question I would have is, did you know about Pearl Harbor? But even without those answers, I no longer believe he was a spy. I believe that he got caught up in a wave of mass hysteria and was making the best decisions for him and his family at the time. Blaming my grandfather anyway takes away the responsibility from the government that locked up 120,000 Japanese Americans based purely on their ethnicity. Now that I know the story, I pass it on to my child. It started with a trip to Manzanar when he was 4. But this is not just a one-time thing. I remind him every time we pass sites here in Southern California where Japanese Americans were incarcerated. So places like the San Ana Racetrack, the Pomona Fairgrounds, Latuna Canyon, Griffith Park. I tell him, this is where they locked up our people. This is my life's work, to share my story, my family, and others who are locked up. In fact, I always tell my son that we, as descendants of camp survivors, have a moral responsibility to make sure it never happens again to anyone, ever. And I share with all of you my family's story in the hopes that we don't allow history to repeat itself. Thank you.
That's what it is. You all right now are sitting in one of the oldest children's theater in Southern California. This place was built in 1929, And the Assistance League of Los Angeles Playhouse is home to the award-winning 9 O'Clock Players Auxiliary. And they've been introducing children to the magic of performance, literature, and music for over 85 years, but that's just a part of what the Assistance League of Los Angeles does. In their quest to provide assistance to anyone who needs it, the Assistance League now has 8 auxiliaries operating 6 different community services for young people, women, and their families. And this includes access to this very theater, its programming for the economically and physically challenged children. We thank the Assistance League for all their work on behalf of Los Angeles and for hosting us here this evening. Stories and experiences are passed down from generation to generation, usually from the elderly to the young. But Richard Pryor said in one of his famous bits, Mudbone, that you learn stuff listening to old people. They ain't all fools, you know. You don't get old being no fool, all right? Now, you pay attention and you might learn something. Here to share what she's picked up from an old friend, please welcome to the stage our next storyteller, Hillary Hadenback.
In high school, when everybody was getting wasted and hooking up, I was sipping a cappuccino and listening to Ella Fitzgerald on endless rotation. Basically, I have always been a senior citizen trapped inside a younger person's body. So when my husband and I moved to the hipster enclave of Silver Lake, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit worried. I get stuck living next to some bearded dude who just blasted Mumford & Sons 24/7 and drove me insane. By but some major stroke of luck, I ended on a street where the average age was close to 70. I totally found my people. And this was unexpected because in the past 5 years, Silver Lake has had the fairly dubious honor of being called the #1 hippest hipster neighborhood in the country by Forbes magazine, not once, but twice. And celebrated for the organic farmers market, the booming art scene, the multicultural blend of residents, and architecturally significant homes designed by Richard Neutra and John Lautner. And then there's my street, which, when we moved in 6 years ago, it seemed to be frozen in time. Like, most of the residents were elderly retirees, just people who had been living in the neighborhood for decades, way before there was ever such a thing as a matcha tea bar or a 365 by Whole Foods concept store. And it's a cast of characters. My neighbor Larry is 80, and he used to own a junk shop in Hollywood, and I've nicknamed him Unbreakable because he once dropped a cinder block on his foot, didn't break a single bone. He told me that he asked his dentist to fill his cavities without Novocaine. I think to be thrifty, but who does that? And he told me that when he was a kid, he rode his tricycle down a flight of tiled stairs and emerged without a scratch. Unbreakable. And then there's my next door neighbor, Tina, and she's 96 years old. And we met when she was holding court from a green plastic lawn chair outside of her house. And in the mornings, I would see this cool coffee clatch of elderly neighbors just chatting and yucking it up. And I thought, oh, squad goals. I so want to be part of their crew. And eventually, they allowed me to join their exclusive club. I felt very honored. And I got to know Tina. And I'd go to her house, which is slightly cluttered with 96 years worth of dusty books and stacks of papers and a massive collection of cat figurines. And there's also these cool mid-century modern accents scattered around. And she'd sit in this overstuffed chair in a leopard print house coat and her little cat-eyed glasses with a George Nelson bubble lamp behind her head. And she'd tell me all about her life. And she is a fount of fascinating stories. In the 1940s, she worked for Jazzman Records, and she has hobnobbed with all kinds of jazz greats. One of my favorite tales is she went to see Louis Armstrong perform, and after the show, he complained to her that he couldn't find any good red beans and rice in Los Angeles. So she bought all the ingredients, and he came back to her house and whipped up a batch in her kitchen right next door to where I live. Or there was the time that Billie Holiday came over, and Tina prepared her a plate of scrambled eggs that she ate at the table where Tina and I played gin rummy like 3 or 4 days a week. Years later, she became a professional puppeteer, and she helped start the Bob Baker Marionette Theater down on First Street. I know, right? So good. And get this, one day I'm at her house, and she pulls this first edition Mad Libs pad off of her bookshelf and says, "Oh, my first husband, Roger, invented Mad Libs." She is the coolest person I have ever met. And occasionally, I take her out to lunch to some of her favorite old Hollywood hotspots. She doesn't drive anymore, like Musso and Frank or the Smokehouse or Yang Chow downtown, where she has been going since they opened, and she is VIP there. They know her by name. And I bring friends along. Everyone wants to meet her because she is so interesting. And she comes to my tap dance recitals, and yes, I take tap dance classes. I am a senior citizen. I really consider her to be one of my closest confidants. She's like family. She's like the grandma I don't have anymore because my grandmas have passed on. And one time I was telling this French friend of mine about Tina, and she said, "Isn't it difficult to be friends with old people because they will die?" And I said, "Well, we're all gonna die." I don't think about that. I just try to enjoy the time that I have with people. Meanwhile, Tina's already survived 2 broken hips and a bout of pneumonia, so there's a good chance that she's gonna outlive us all. But the truth is, I do really prefer the company of older people because they are these living, breathing vaults of history. And when they go, all the stories go with them. And sometimes it feels like if it weren't for me and my fellow nostalgists, and you know who you are, like all the memories of yesteryear would just totally be forgotten. Like the time that Tina and I crossed paths 40 years ago. So when I was a kid, I had a birthday party at the Bob Baker Marionette Theater. And before the show, they brought all the kids celebrating birthdays up to the stage, and I was given a little gold crown and my own personal marionette. And they wished us happy birthday, and we got to stand up there and feel like stars. And then I returned to my seat on the carpet, and then the lights dimmed, and soon the speakers crackled to life with these kooky show tunes like "My Heart Belongs to Daddy." And then these black-clad puppeteers maneuvered these sparkling, feathered, furry creatures down the carpet and into our laps. And this somewhat bawdy puppet show, it felt like magic, because this was a simpler time. We didn't have CGI. And we only had like 5 working channels on the TV. I mean, you kids don't even understand the struggles we endured. But puppetry was real entertainment. Now, after the show, I went into the party room in my little gold crown with my buddies, and I waited for someone to bring me some birthday cake, because what is the point of having a birthday if there is no cake? And when I told Tina that I had this birthday party at the theater when I was a kid, she looked at me over the top of her little cat-eyed glasses, and there was a bit of a twinkle in her eye, and she said, "You know, I probably brought you that cake. That was my job, to bring the cakes out to the kids." What? And I tried to conjure that image in my head of a younger version of Tina bringing me that piece of cake, and it was like time travel. And I said to her, "We were fated to be friends." And the best part is the last couple of years, I've been able to return the favor because I've baked Tina's birthday cakes for her 95th and 96th birthday. And recently, I got to accompany Tina to the Bob Baker Marionette Theater, the place of our very first meeting, because she was being honored in this Living Legends Behind the Strings panel that was moderated by KPCC's Alex Cohen. And it was so cool to see her being recognized for her creative contribution to this city. I just followed her around like a groupie all day, and she was wearing this like cool shag carpet puppet boss coat. And they planned a special puppet performance. So soon, the theater filled up with families and fans, and the lights went down, and I was transported to that same puppet show that I was at when I was a kid. And I was watching all the children's faces, and they just lit up with wonder, and they were giggling, and I was like, man, these kids, because they've got VR, they've got wheelie sneakers, they've got fidget spinners, and they are still totally mesmerized by this old-fashioned show. And Tina leaned over and tapped me on the shoulder, and she pointed to the kids, and she said, "That's what puppets do." And there we were, 3, 4 generations of Angelinos, sharing an experience that hadn't changed in 50 years. And those kids are going to remember that show long after Tina and I are gone. You know, when there's a 365 by Whole Foods concept space station in the sky. And they'll tell their friends about it the same way that I'm telling you about Tina tonight. And that's the beauty of living in a place almost your entire life. It's the buildings disappear and people move on, but the shared memories and experiences never die. Thank you.
Love puppy.
Airport security has changed significantly since 2001 in an effort to safeguard us from perceived threats outside. However, fear is a two-way street. The identity of a threat, an American or a human, is not universal. TSA policies continue to be the point of conversations, points of contention, and sometimes punchlines for jokes. While being charged with ensuring our well-being, not all experiences for travelers are easy or equal. Here to share their experience, please welcome to the stage, Ash Nichols.
Did you know that airport scanners have a pink button for when they think you look like a girl, and a blue button for when they think you look like a boy? And if your body doesn't match the button they choose for you, then you alarm the scanner. I never used to think of myself as transgender. I saw that as someone else's identity, someone else's story. I've always known I wasn't cisgendered, but I wasn't really a part of any communities. That changed one Tuesday morning at LAX. I didn't match either the blue or the pink button, and suddenly, my body was a security threat. They insisted on referring to my groin anomaly. I explained, that's my penis, not an anomaly. I identified myself as transgender, thinking it would flag them to recall that training I hoped they had once. The word transgender just seemed clearer. Besides, I didn't fancy trying to explain my non-binary gender identity to a bunch of government officials at 7 a.m. I just wanted to be as accommodating as possible. Unfortunately, my willingness to openly discuss my genitals didn't assuage their suspicions. So my penis underwent its first pat-down of the day, but my groin was still regarded as a threat and an anomaly. So I was handed off to a supervisor for a full body pat-down, which included my groin again and was very thorough. This new agent was sympathetic, though. They expressed themselves as an ally of the LGBT community. They gave me agency in how my body was handled during the pat-down. I felt respected. They did a full body pat-down and then cleared and released me. Until their supervisor came and intervened. The new supervisor informed me that policy dictated that I be taken to a private room. It was required that they use the front of their hands on my penis to confirm that it was actually a penis. I had been understanding up to this point. I reasoned they had a job to do, and I could make it easier by being well-behaved. But I couldn't imagine what would be required of me in that room. Tears started streaming down my face. All the coherent arguments I tried to make with the new supervisor were met with nothing but dismissive declarations. Every response was dripping with the word ma'am, even though I was asking for the blue button. Ma'am, even though I wear men's clothing. Ma'am, even though my penis is all we can talk about. My penis, which they are still referring to as an anomaly. I argued I should have the right to consent to the button that scans me. Their mistake shouldn't give them the right to grab my genitals a third time. But my rights didn't come into this equation. I alarmed the scanner twice. I was not allowed to go through again. That would be against policy. I flew several times a year out of this airport, this very security line, and never before had my penis been flagged as a potential threat or anomaly. That's when the supervisor treated me to a little lecture. The scanner operator chooses the pink or the blue button based on how you present. The word present was used against me like a weapon. I wasn't masculine enough to have earned the blue button, as if I was the cause of my own suffering. Besides, I was told I had failed under both buttons, as if I wasn't even recognizably human. The interaction was so bad that at one point a fellow passenger felt prompted to intervene. They yelled at the TSA. I am really sorry, I don't know, but this is a human being. Why can't you just consider that and give them a little compassion? I felt so much love in that moment. Someone who had no idea who I was, no clue about trans issues, but they recognized pain and fear in my face, and they stepped up to protect me. But that's the moment I knew I was screwed. It only highlighted what I'd been fighting. The TSA had all the power here. Everything was subject to their whim. The whim of their policy, the whim of their binary, the whim of this supervisor. They could keep me from getting to my plane, from getting to my best friend's wedding. The supervisor left to check the policy again, ma'am, if that'll make you feel better. They took the sympathetic agent with them. My tears had stopped as I stood there looking at my credit cards and shoes sitting just out of reach in the busy airport. I looked at this awkward agent who'd been left to guard me. This agent who had been so alarmed by my penis that they went over their supervisor's head to prevent me from getting to my plane. The sympathetic agent, the only one making any attempt at treating me like a human, didn't wield the power here. And then there was me, who woke up that morning not expecting that one government official could so violate my sense of self in less than 15 minutes, who didn't know that months later I would feel anxious just walking down the street, wondering if my penis was normal enough today. Before this, I worried I wasn't trans enough. Now, I wondered if my anxiety would spike every time I traveled. I thought about how many people's bodies are considered anomalies. The suspicion they are subject to every day, just for going to the bathroom, or for asking to be visible with pronouns that refer to who they actually are. How trying to be non-threatening and fly under the radar is sometimes the only way to stay safe or sane. This wasn't the first time I was made to feel invisible. It was just the first time I admitted it. Even through my haze, I reverted to the coping mechanism I knew best. I tried to teach. I gathered up any patience I could find, and I took it upon myself to try and help this awkward agent understand. Maybe if I could, it would be better for the next person. It was the only agency I had left. The supervisor returned, shepherding the sympathetic agent who looked like an elementary school student being made to make a rehearsed apology they didn't believe in. The sympathetic agent explained that they were newly promoted, that they hadn't yet learned all of the policy details, that they were very sorry for the inconvenience that I'd had, but now they had to take me into a private area and do another pat down, this time with the front of their hands. They apologized again. The authoritarian supervisor looked smug. No policy had been checked in their time away. The sympathetic agent was likely yelled at, maybe their promotion threatened. But the 30 seconds I spent in the private area with the sympathetic agent were infinitely easier than the 15 minutes I spent defending my existence to that supervisor. The pat-down was explained in detail to me, but then the sympathetic agent barely touched me before declaring that I was clear and free to go. Now. I could see the awkward agent watching in the corner, and I knew the sympathetic agent was going to get in trouble again for standing up for me. But I packed my things quickly and left. 6 months ago, I thought my gender identity was only mine, that it was private. But it isn't. I am transgender. And trying to fly under the radar only makes me invisible. And I'm done being invisible.
I see you. An old adage or familiar phrase in the theater is the show must go on. Well, a few days ago, one of our fellow storytellers fell ill and is unable to join us tonight. So we wish her well and hope to hear her story the next time we all get together. As we've moved around the city with Unheard LA, we met a lot of new people and made a lot of new friends. And in conversation, one of the questions that always comes up is where we're from. Well, 3 weeks ago, we were in Whittier kicking off this series with some new friends, and here they are, back to the Unheard LA stage. Please welcome back Stephanie Sager and Eddie M. Ghana Jr., also known as Steady.
I was born and raised in LA.
I am a Bay Area transplant.
My mom immigrated in 1978 to Chicago, or as she called it, the coldest place in the world. My dad immigrated to Los Angeles in 1982, or as he calls it, the year E.T. was in theaters. They both came to the United States for the potentially homogenous reason to find a better life. For many Filipinos, a better life did not mean enriching themselves, but helping out the entire family back home. Every month, my parents never failed to send care packages known as balikbayan boxes full of essentials, toiletries, clothes, and of course, candy. Also important to note, my parents moved from the Philippines during the reign of Ferdinand Marcos, a dictator who thrust the country into martial law. My dad was studying to be a lawyer at the time. He was studying law because, as he said, he wanted to defend those who couldn't defend themselves. But because martial law was declared, he wasn't sure if the country would even need lawyers anymore. My mom, on the other hand, was a nurse. She was part of what's called the brain drain, in which educated Filipinos look for jobs overseas because the country is unable to supply jobs. In fact, one could say that the Philippines' biggest export is not a product, but its people.
To trace my story is to follow my parents from the Philippines. My dad came here in September 1975. He was a teenager and played basketball for a local high school in San Jose. He also worked at A&W, which he would remind me every time I visited. From time to time, he would visit the Philippines. In February 1986 was when he met my mother. After a series of dates and becoming official, they were engaged in April and only had about a month to plan their marriage in June. This was 1986. Rather than going back to the States, my dad stayed with my mom as she was waiting for her visa to be approved. She worked as a doctor of internal medicine. In 1987, she became pregnant, and they wanted so much for me to be born in America. 2 months before I was born, my dad and mom came here, January 1988. My mom's education translated into working as a unit assistant, and my dad continued to work as a storage mover. They lived in Sunnyvale for about 3 years and worked full-time, overtime, until they were able to finally afford a house in Union City. My story is this: I was conceived in the Philippines, but born here in America.
Being the child of immigrants is something that we carry with pride.
Always.
At the same time, as people who carry the privilege of being born here,
Us married here.
immigration status is something we didn't have to actively think about constantly.
However, as someone who is brown, as people who are brown, we carry the look of the so-called perpetual foreigner.
Like when someone asks you, where are you from? I'm from Pico
Union
Rivera,
City, UC.
Pico.
I'm from the Bay Area.
I'm from Los Angeles.
I'm from 510.
I'm from 310.
Where are you from?
I'm from California.
The state with a roadmap of memories. I feel connected. Follow the 101 from the Golden Gate
To
Bridge.
downtown Los Angeles. Take the 5 to the 55 to the 405 to Irvine.
From the 405 to 55 to 5 to Anaheim.
From the 5 to the 101 to the 110 to the 10 West.
Koreatown is where I'll start a family.
No. Where are you from?
Our families are from the Philippines. My mom is from Las Piñas City, Metro Manila.
Gonzaga, Cagayan. My dad is from Cabugao, Ilocos Sur.
Binakayan, Cavite.
My
My parents speak Tagalog, and I only understand it. I speak English, and they understand it as Americanized. Haven't I written this poem before?
But let me get back to your question. My family is from a sweltering country that is fattened by pork barrels and fried by a burning question.
Bakit ba ito nangyari? Bakit ba ito nangyari? Bakit ba ito nangyari?
I'm not going to translate because it will lose its meaning.
Meaning, why should the Philippines trust a country that doesn't let it speak for itself?
I know what is happening. I know what you are trying to ask me.
I know what you are going to say next.
No,
I am not from a lumpia you ate at a friend's birthday party.
No,
I am not from a halo halo you ordered at Jollibee. No, I am not from a balut you saw on a rerun episode of Fear Factor. No, I am not from a nurse that examined you months ago and was so hospitable. No, I am not from a dream vacation to sleep on white beaches. No, I am not from a whale shark on a billboard that said everything is fun there. We are not from the preconceived notions of where you think we are from. So, where are you from? I come from a place, the same place.
Where you ask yourself the same question.
Where am I from?
And the answer should always be,
I'm from here, right here.
Good to have friends back. The 6.5 square mile neighborhood of Boyle Heights is known in part for its multiracial legacy. Over the years, it's been home to Mexicans, blacks, Jews, and Asians. It's been a point of transformation and confrontation. For some, a destination, and for others, just a temporary stop. Here to share 2 poems about how she journeyed to get to Boyle Heights and how she's navigated its transformation, please welcome to the stage, Josephina Lopez.
I wrote this poem when I was 16 years old in my American literature class to explain how my family got to this country. It's called Journey to El Norte. My father came to the U.S. He entered not by the island where the lady in green stands tall, but by the dark and cold borders divided by rivers, fences, and wild mountains, filled with rats, snakes, coyotes, and border patrol officers waiting for you to fall. It wasn't until the fourth attempt did my father manage to find work and not get caught. The money he earned, he sent back to the little pueblo where we remained. On an unexpected night, my mother came to my bedside and said, "Vámonos. We're going." Going where? To join your father in la ciudad de Los Angeles. Angels. We left at night, trying to stay out of sight. We took a bus, then a train, then a bus again. The journey took 3 days and a lot of hours of dreaming of my father and the clouds and the angels and the music and the golden gates. I kept staring at the wheels of the bus, waiting for them to lift us up to the sky. I truly believe we were going to heaven. But we had reached Los Angeles, but we were still on earth. This isn't heaven, but it is my home. It isn't perfect, but it is my Boyle Heights. Thank you. And years before, Boyle Heights was in the news because of gentrification. It used to be in the news solely because of the drive-bys and the gang violence. And it used to be referred to as a ghetto, and no one wanted to live there. I was even told many times not to tell anybody that I was from Boyle Heights, otherwise people would think less of me. But I knew back then, even before this whole thing with everyone wanting to move in, because now it's a cool neighborhood, I knew it was a great place. So I decided to write a love letter many years ago, and I want to share it with you. And of course, it's called Boyle Heights. Poetry is being here, being home, Boyle Heights, my beautiful little barrio. Since I can remember, I swore I'd leave you like all the rest. But when I'm in Paris, Rome, or New York, I just want to come back. Everyone thinks you're East LA, but I know who you really are. I know what they say on the 5 o'clock news isn't true. I know you're a beautiful place where families like me loved and lived. I know you are located near the LA River, somewhere close to my heart. Thank you.
Is that in Boyle Heights? Yeah. I'm ready to dance, yo. As a former resident of Koreatown, I'd say moving there is like telling all of your friends with cars, don't come visit me, ever. But the trade-off for available parking is a multicultural community that may have everything you need if you're willing to look. Here to tell her tale of the hunt, please welcome to the stage, Christina Wong.
I live in Koreatown, or as I must sell it to real estate snobs, Beverly Hills adjacent. I first learned of Koreatown in 1992 when news footage of the LA riots lit up my family's television screen in our San Francisco home, and my then 13-year-old eyes realized that Los Angeles had more neighborhoods than just Hollywood, Venice Beach, and Disneyland. During that harrowing week of 1992, I watched with my family as familiar, unfamiliar, Asian but not Chinese like mine faces shot at looters, whole city blocks on fire, the explosive failure of people who could not just get along across racial difference literally playing out in a national state of emergency. I pointed to the smoke and chaos on that TV and I declared, one day, I will buy my first home there. Okay, so I never imagined that the epicenter of apocalyptic racial chaos would one day become the neighborhood I'd call my adult home. But what can I say? We're not a Benetton ad, but the neighborhood has come a long way. I bought a modest condo in Koreatown in 2010 because it was one of the few centrally located LA neighborhoods where I could forego car ownership and therefore afford a mortgage on an artist's income. What K-Town lacks in green space, it makes up for amazing walkability. But despite K-Town's overabundance of 24-hour food and underground karaoke, the one thing I couldn't find was a place to exercise within walking distance of my home. Now, the one clear option was the 24-hour fitness on Wilshire, but I'm not a fan of gym equipment nor a commitment of high membership dues. I'm the kind of girl who can only exercise if held captive by a yoga teacher or aerobic instructor in the company of other women for whom walking on a treadmill alone for arbitrary stretches of time also feels too existential. Right? I know, I get on an elliptical, right? And I'm like, I have bad thoughts about life, right? For as many shopping cart tamales as there are in Koreatown, I could not find one drop-in, low-commitment, low-cost fitness studio. So for 2 years, I got my workout on as a Groupon floozy. I took the bus as far as downtown LA to wherever Fitness Craze was offering an introductory 1-month half-price deal, feigning interest in the newest yoga meets ballet meets kickboxing meets Hollywood striptease workout before tramping on, Groupon hoe that I am, to the next faraway Fitness Fad Studios introductory offering. It was tedious and time-consuming to spend so much time on a bus getting to my cheap workout, but the search for walkability, a walkable fitness in my neighborhood, it was impossible. Then one Monday night, I was walking to the bus stop on Pico, and I hear the sounds of a party in the middle of a strip mall. Latin music blasting through a blown-out speaker from inside, of all places, a Cash for Gold storefront. Upon closer look, in the adjoining room to where you can sell your gold bracelets or gold fillings for quick cash to a woman behind bulletproof glass, were dozens of women gyrating and dancing to Latin pop music. Somehow, this shady Cash for Gold business was not a front for drugs or gambling, but a rogue Zumba studio. I returned the next day in workout clothes. I slipped 3 crumpled $1 bills to a woman behind bulletproof glass. Then I went to the adjacent room next door to join neighbors I'd never met before in a fat-burning, cardio-pulsing aerobic workout. The woman who took my $3 was also the Zumba instructor, and for an hour on those concrete floors, we merengue marched, we salsa traveled, we destrosa'd together. I had found it. A workout in walking distance. It was not part of a corporation. Neither was it underwritten by a nonprofit community health initiative. Right? Public radio crowds love nonprofit humor. I know this about you. This was a studio underwritten by the will of the people. This was grassroots fitness organizing, a people of color community health space, a guerrilla action against the overwhelming density of cities. I had found a fitness gold mine. But what was the profit model here? I tried to not spend too much time during class multiplying the number of students by $3. Subtracting the cost of a teacher, the rent, overhead, insurance. Was there insurance here? Nor did I wonder too hard why there was always a set of lone tire rims, 4 pairs of sneakers, and knockoff juicy purses, always perpetually for sale in the corner of the studio. But for an hour a day, this is how I spent quality time with my neighbors, who I would otherwise never talk to. Not that we did much talking, with the exception of me using basic high school Spanish to greet them, but we spent the hour moving together. We sweated together. We smiled as we got fit together. Then one day, the Cash for Gold storefront closed without warning, taking the possibly illegal Zumba studio with it. Leaving me on the hunt for a new makeshift Zumba studio. I roamed the streets of Koreatown, listening for the sound of crackling samba at 9 a.m., looking for homemade poster board signs in Spanish taped to windows of storefronts that look like they might be between leases. My detective work paid off when I found a secret Zumba studio on 3rd and Alexandria, carved from a former clothing store. A pile of decapitated mannequins still laying fresh in the corner, while we did reggaeton steps to a speaker on the floor. But that place only stayed open for a month. I briefly found one around the corner, which was even smaller, an old toy store the size of my bedroom. But the going price, always $3, always cash only, always on the brink of closure. It was there that my fellow Zumba students told me of a gym on Pico that offered Zumba classes. She'd seen it, but she couldn't remember its name, and I couldn't find anything on it on Yelp. So I went walking one morning, using what stray detail clues I had. Pico, near Oxford, look for a nice floor, look for weights. And then I found it, a small gym called Fitness and Beyond, owned by a mother-daughter team, sandwiched on either side by a jukebox repair store that's always closed, and a printing shop I'd never seen anyone go into. Zumba, only $3, cash only, a tiny gym with no showers and lots of room to Zumba in. Now, in the beginning, I was often the lone Asian face in the Zumba class, but Korean women are showing up more and more. Once, when I was the only Asian in class, Psy's Gangnam Style was playing. And the entire class turned their heads 240 degrees to look at me. The women smiled and nodded knowingly, as if this traditional song from my homeland had made me feel so much more welcome here. It was a little strange, but very sweet. When Korean seniors show up in my class in packs, I wonder how they stumbled upon what feels like the secret of the neighborhood. During holidays, my Zumba studio has potlucks and people bring pupusas and Korean noodles and donuts, and I can follow the conversations in Spanish more than I completely cannot in Korean. But it's nice to eat with them. They're my neighbors. These are the women who've become my morning family in Los Angeles. They're the community I had fought to find. Are we some kind of racial utopia? No, not exactly. But in a neighborhood that's frantically increasing its density with new buildings developing everywhere, we are literally keeping each other healthy.
Woo, woo. Got the moves. If Unheard LA has taught us anything, it's that every person has a story and the power to move people. Of course, that's old news for our next guest. Since 1997, Young Storytellers has been on a mission to inspire young people to discover the power of their own voice. Their students have written over 8,000 stories, some rooted in fantasy, others in reality, and as a volunteer actor in one of their big shows, they're a lot of fun to perform. Let's welcome to the stage the executive director of Young Storytellers, Bill Thompson.
At Young Storytellers, we believe every child has a story worth telling. We impact the creativity of more than 1,200 young people every year by mentoring them to write their own original stories and then see them brought to life by professional actors on film and stage. And from this experience, young people learn that their voice matters, that they matter. And so tonight, you are about to see a story written by a 5th grader named Kevin from Saturn Elementary School. He worked with his mentor, Jess, for 10 weeks to write his script. And I want you to focus tonight on the fact that every single word in the script was written by Kevin. Jess was there to cheer him on and support his writing, but all of the ideas, they came from his imagination and his life. So let's meet Kevin and Jess. That's nice, right? So, Jess, can you tell everybody what your favorite part of working with Kevin was?
Yes, my favorite part of working with Kevin was that he was very passionate about the subject matter. And it's a subject matter with a lot of gravity, and he told this story with a lot of compassion and grace and a lot of maturity, and that was my favorite part.
And so, Kevin, can you tell us what inspired you to write the story? Like, why did you write it?
It came in my imagination.
It came in your imagination?
And then I got bullied before, and then I don't want none of police come come to other kids. So that's why I make this story.
That's great. That's great. You know, I want you to know, I think the thing that's been so brilliant about tonight and what's so amazing about your story is that an act of creation, of telling your personal story is an act of bravery, and you're incredibly brave, and thank you for sharing your story with us. Why don't you guys have a seat? I want to make sure that everyone understands that our Script to Stage program that Kevin did, it exists because of the incredible dedication of an army of nearly 2,000 volunteers that give their time and attention to our students every year. And these volunteers serve as mentors like Jess, and they also serve as actors to perform the stories. And so I am incredibly pleased to introduce our incredible actors for tonight's performance, Mr. Pete Pasco, Mr. Adam Craig, Sean Michael Boozer, Kalena Renoa, Fakamo Massaquoi, Valerie Henderson, Darian Battle, and Brandon Econ. And we are pleased to present Getting Bullied by Kevin Vasquez.
Getting Bullied by Kevin Vasquez. Exterior, schoolyard, morning. Jonathan is getting bullied by Steph and Oscar because he's from Mexico and doesn't know how to speak English very well.
But I just want to play soccer with you guys.
No, I don't like Mexicans.
Jonathan is very sad. He cries as he walks away.
And you're never going to be our friend and play soccer with us.
Interior, bathroom, morning. Jonathan cries near the sink. Then he gets an idea. He dries his face and exits the bathroom. Interior, classroom, morning. Jonathan approaches his teacher, Mrs. Lee.
I'm getting bullied. Can you help me?
I'm busy right now.
But I'm really sad.
Go back to class.
Jonathan walks out. Interior, principal's office, morning. Jonathan talks to his principal, Mr. Danny.
I'm getting bullied. Can you help me?
Yes. I'm going to talk to Seth and Oscar.
Exterior, schoolyard, day. Mr. Danny approaches Seth and Oscar.
You two need to stop bullying Jonathan, or you are both going to get in trouble. Okay, we'll stop.
Interior, cafeteria, day. Jonathan goes through the lunch line getting his food. All of a sudden, Seth and Oscar approach Jonathan, take his lunch, and throw it in the trash.
And that's what you get for telling the principal.
Interior, school office, day. Jonathan talks to the school nurse.
I'm sick and I can't do my work.
Okay, well, you'll have to go home.
The nurse calls Jonathan's parents. Interior, market, day. Jonathan's mom talks on the phone with the school nurse.
I'm at work. I can't leave. I'll send my sister to come pick him up.
Interior, school office, day. Jonathan's aunt enters the office to pick him up.
Bye.
Bye.
Exterior, Seth and Oscar's house, day. Jonathan stands with his mom and dad. His dad rings the doorbell. Seth's dad answers the door.
Can I help you? My kid is being bullied by your two sons.
Seth and Oscar's dad calls them to the door.
Seth! Oscar! Why are you two bullying Jonathan? Because I don't like Mexicans. That's wrong. You two need to apologize, and you need to stop bullying him. Okay, well, we won't do it anymore, Dad.
Exterior, a sidewalk, after school. Seth and Oscar walk up behind Jonathan. They hand him a stack of papers.
If you don't do our homework, something very bad is going to happen to you. Okay. I will do your homework.
Interior, Jonathan's room, night. Jonathan sits at a desk doing work. Jonathan's brother, Ivan, enters the room, looks at the papers Jonathan is working on.
Why are you doing someone else's homework? Who's making you do this?
These two kids?
I'm gonna take care of this.
Exterior, a sidewalk, afternoon. Seth and Oscar walk home. Ivan approaches them.
I want you to stop bullying my little brother. How would you like it if I bullied you? Think about it.
As Ivan walks away, Seth and Oscar laugh and high five. They haven't thought about anything. Interior, a pizza parlor, 10 years later. Seth and Oscar, 20s, enter the pizza parlor and begin filling out applications. The boss comes out from the kitchen.
Excuse me, I can't hire you. I don't hire bullies in my restaurant. I only hire good people here.
Jonathan, 20s, comes out of the kitchen as well.
Hi. Do you remember me?
Seth and Oscar nod. They are nervous now.
I think if they're willing to apologize and think about what they've done, I'd be happy to work with them, if it's okay with you.
The boss waits for Oscar and Seth to respond. They look at each other.
We had some time to think about it, and we're sorry. It doesn't pay to be a bully, and you can't get anywhere in life if you don't treat people well. Jonathan, we're sorry. Okay. I accept your apology.
Okay. Well, you guys are hired. You can start tomorrow.
The boss hands Oscar and Seth their new aprons.
Well, hey, Jonathan, would you like to play soccer with us in the park after you get off work?
Sure. I'd like to, yeah.
Everyone is happy to be friends. Fade out.
Yes. Young Storytellers, everybody. Yeah, Kevin, come on up. Let's take it down. No? Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Yeah. And that's our show. Let's get everybody back out on stage. Everybody on stage. All of our storytellers. Come on in. Come on in. Keep it going. Some shouts, rounds of applause. Lots of love for our performers. Kevin. Yeah. There we go. Oh, they're not going to stop. We're going to let them go. There you go. Now, sorry to cut you short. As we've mentioned before, Unheard LA is an experiment, something new for us. And as such, we'd like y'all to help us out by letting us know if you'd come out to another Unheard LA show. So, if you would, please take out your cell phones, wipe away all the notifications, you don't need them yet, and text Unheard LA to 63735. That is 63735. And answer 2 quick questions. And make sure you check your spelling. Don't let autocorrect get the best of you, because it always gets me. All right? And tonight is the 3rd part of a 3-part series. And if you want to see our first 2 episodes, you can check us out at kpcc.org/unheardla. And if we continue the series, I'm looking at you. Yeah. We'll post them there as well. So thank you. Yes, I will. Unheard LA to 63735. That is 63735. Text it to your friends and tell them text it too. All right? You got it? Got it? Got it? Got it? Good. So, thank you, John. Thank you, Ashley, and the entire KPCC In Person team, including our photographer, Bill Youngblood. Thank you also to Quetzal for the use of Unbound Sueltos from the album The Eternal Get Down. There we go. And thank you to all of our generous Unheard LA storytellers, Bill Thompson and the Young Storytellers, the California Wellness Foundation, the Assistance League of Los Angeles Playhouse, and all of our people out here in the house. Most importantly, thank you for coming. We'll all be at the mixer. Yeah. We'll all be at the mixer later, where I encourage you to meet somebody new and tell them where you're from. And whatever you do, do not leave here tonight with your story unheard. Bless you. Good night.